Hello. Thank you for being here today. We show you registered as Amanda Crawford on behalf of the Department of Information Resources, and that you will be testifying neutrally. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, good afternoon, Chairman Capriglione, Vice Chair Bojani, members. I'm Amanda Crawford, and I have the privilege of serving as the Executive Director of the Texas Department of Information Resources and the Chief Information Officer for the state of Texas. And I do appreciate the opportunity to present an overview of DIR in front of all of you today. In 1989, the legislature created DIR to ensure the efficient and cost-effective use of state technology resources. In fact, DIR's founding statute charges the agency to facilitate the most cost-effective and useful retrieval and exchange of information within state government and utilize new technologies to provide higher quality, more timely, and more cost-effective government services. In the past 3 decades, DIR's roles and responsibilities have grown along with technological advances, but our founding purpose of ensuring that government uses technology in an efficient and cost-effective manner remains central to everything we do. As a state's technology agency, DIR is charged with ensuring that government entities can find and implement the most secure, powerful, and cost-effective technology available. The agency's mission is to serve Texas government by leading the state's technology strategy, protecting state technology infrastructure, and offering innovative and cost-effective technology solutions for all levels of government. And we enable innovative technology that is scalable and secure while delivering the best value and service to the people of Texas. Known as the Texas model by other states, DIR's structure is the closest thing to privatized state IT in the country, offering cost-efficient, best-in-breed technology and expertise from top private sector companies to our public sector customers. Many other states strive to replicate the Texas model because of its success, efficiency, scalability, and resilience in the face of security and workforce challenges. The success of the Texas model is evident by the growing number of public entities using these programs. DIR annually facilitates and processes more than $5 billion in governmental purchases and revenues through our programs. We deliver over $800 million in cost of service payments to providers for services, infrastructure, and software through our Shared Technology Services Program, also known as STS. The STS program offers government entities full service IT, providing secure solutions for cloud, application development, and maintenance, security, and digital commerce. All STS offerings are provided by best-in-class vendors utilizing leading industry standards, proven best practices, and rigorous vendor management practices at DIR. Through competitively procured contracts, the program utilizes the collective purchasing power of the state to make modern IT purchases typically only accessible for large government entities, available for even the smallest government agency. And we do all this while providing exceptional service. I'm very proud to report that DIR earned a 99% average overall satisfaction rate from our shared services customers in fiscal year 24. Through our cooperative contracts, or the do-it-yourself model, as we like to refer it, DIR does the heavy procurement lifting by competing and pre-negotiating contract terms and conditions for around 350 companies for thousands of technology goods and services, making it quick and easy for government entities to purchase IT solutions through our contracts. While state agencies are required to use cooperative contracts for IT purchases, many local entities and even other states voluntarily use the program to save time and money. In fact, 46 other states and over 500 out-of-state entities have used our contracts. In our co-op contracts in the fiscal year 24, government customers made over 3.7 million individual purchase transactions that exceeded $3.4 billion, up almost 26 million from the previous year. In that same time, we've saved more than 3,400 Texas governmental entities and, more importantly, Texas taxpayers, at least $376 million in cost avoidance. My team has prepared a packet of information detailing how the entities in each of your districts have saved your constituents' tax dollars by purchasing off of DIR contracts, and we'll distribute that later on to you all after the hearing, and we're very happy to get you any other information that you might need. As a reminder, DIR is primarily funded through statutorily authorized, board-approved administrative fees, and only 6% of our fiscal year 25 budget, or about $53 million, is allocated for DIR's agency administrative costs. DIR only receives general revenue for cybersecurity services, and since fiscal year 21, we have been able to return $28.5 million of that cybersecurity GR to the state treasury through a method of finance swap to pay for certain cybersecurity services with other DIR agency revenue. Additionally, DIR has returned to the General Revenue Fund $193 million through the Texas.gov program and issued nearly $6 million in rebates to our customers over the last 5 years. Speaking of the Texas.gov program, it also creates efficiencies for state agencies and their constituents. As the state's official website and a trusted resource for Texans, Texas.gov facilitates secure and user-friendly online government service, hosting over 330 state and local customer applications and providing over 1,700 services for constituents. Texas.gov processed 61.3 million transactions in 2024 and $2.6 billion in payments. More and more Texans are taking it online, which means additional time and money savings. For example, renewing a driver's license online means Texans don't have to drive to a location, wait in line, resulting in savings of around $57 per person and at least 2 hours of their precious time. In addition, utilizing Texas.gov's online services can free up state employees to complete other essential duties, saving agencies time and money. And today, Texas is a national leader for state government technology and cybersecurity programs because of the financial investments and forward-thinking legislation enacted by the legislature and signed into law by Governor Abbott over past sessions. DIR's Network Security Operations Center, a secure location that houses the state's network security services and tools, defends the state of Texas internet network by blocking over 1 billion cyber intrusion attempts on the state network every day, protecting over 2.8 million public-facing IP addresses, and monitoring over 325,000 state agency endpoints. DIR's Office of the Chief Information Security Officer has successfully established 3 regional security operations centers in partnership with Angelo State University, the University of Texas at Austin, and the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. They've provided technical guidance and incident response support for hundreds of incidents throughout the state and distributed thousands of threat bulletins through our communications channels, all of which better the online security of Texas. A lot of discussion about data this morning. DIR also manages the Texas statewide data program to promote a data sharing culture throughout state government and higher education. For example, through the Texas Data Literacy Program, we provide guidance and training and education to state agency and higher education employees. Additionally, the Texas Open Data Portal, the state's official portal for government open data, launched in 2015 with just 20 data assets, now provides access to over 1,000 high-value data sets from 35 state agencies, attracting more than 940,000 visits and 200,000 downloads in fiscal year 24. By enhancing transparency and reducing repetitive public information requests, the Open Data Portal drives accountability and saves precious time and money for both state agencies and the public. In addition, we've conducted hundreds of education and outreach events on other topics to ensure that the continued education and skill advancement of Texas's technology workforce. For example, we've been training other state agencies on everyone's favorite efficiency creator, AI. Through the Texas Innovation and Education Center, we have showcased 25 categories of emerging technology in a secure sandbox environment to show employees from at least 15 state agencies just what they can achieve with these technologies. We hold a bi-monthly AI user group, which has amassed more than 650 government employees, and we have hosted 3 AI Day forums for state agency IT professionals, and thank you again, Chair Capriglione, for participating in those. This cycle, DIR is under the Sunset Advisory Commission's review. We appreciate the review process, the thoroughness and professionalism of the staff, and the sunset findings and recommendations, some of which focused on ways that DIR could better serve the state to introduce even more efficiencies, such as the Procurement as a Service pilot program. DIR stands ready to serve this committee, the legislature at large, in any manner necessary to help the state achieve the agency's founding mission of government efficiency. And with everything that we do it with a little over 260 employees. DIR is a technology agency powered by people who are dedicated to the mission of public service and our strong can-do culture. I am proud of our agency's culture, which has resulted in excluding interagency transfers. Our employee turnover rate is a low 6.8%, which is nearly a third of the statewide average. This concludes my prepared remarks, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Thank you, Ms. Crawford. First, let me say the chair recognizes Representative Troxclair as being present. Representative Kane.
Yep, thank you. All right, so let's discuss. You just mentioned we had that 376 million in cost avoidance for fiscal year 2024. How much would that be if everybody was in? How about this? What agencies are, I guess, required to procure or do cooperatives with you guys? IT products, shared tech services, data. It seems like some of this is up to their choice. Will we benefit from making them? And then locals, are there more that could come in? And the tough one is, do you have any idea of how much we could have saved if everybody was doing it? I mean,
that's the crystal ball question at the end, yes. Regarding our program, so I mentioned our shared technology services, which is the more managed service functions that we have for technology, and then we have the cooperative contracts. For cooperative contracts, we'll start there, and those are the do-it-yourself model where an agency is going to go out and procure something that is off of our contracts already. All state agencies are required by law to leverage those contracts, if they choose not to, they need to seek an exemption from us in order to go out. And there's a dollar amount. The cap on those for purchases is $10 million. So anything over $10 million needs to go to an open market procurement. Regarding your earlier question about the legislature is not considered a state agency for purposes of that statute. So there's not a requirement to leverage the cooperative contracts. I don't have the data in front of me to say whether or not the legislative branch does, so we can get that for you, but it's not a requirement. The local governments, and that includes K-12, special purpose districts, universities, all of those entities, they absolutely are eligible entities to be able to use those. So, numbers around those. So, for example, state agencies, and this is for a fiscal year, I guess the most recent quarter, I'll tell you 37% of the purchases through our co-op were from state agencies, but local government was next with 31% of the purchases that came through our cooperative contracts just last session. So last quarter. So they're definitely leveraged by local governments.
Ms. Crawford, I'll just try and help out. We've got 13 people up here, so if you don't mind, we'll try and guide it. Why aren't they using you? They don't know about DIR?
I think it's more than likely they don't know.
Should they be made to use you?
That would be a policy call for this body, and certainly not for me.
Would the taxpayers be happy? Would they save a lot of money?
I think they would save a lot of money, correct.
Thank you, ma'am. One other question, though. There's a lot of code provisions that deal with things that are similar to you guys. Every agency seems to have their own IT geek inside of it, and y'all have got your own. It seems we're pretty duplicative there. Are there any statutes? I'll give you an example. One, Chapter 2060 of the Government Code, Interagency Data Transparency Commission. What is that, and why isn't that under you guys?
I believe that was one that started, I'm going to have to go back and get back to you on that, but that is a commission that I don't believe has been leveraged in a very long time.
Is it being used at all?
I believe maybe once at its creation.
Sounds like let's abolish it. All right, thank you. That's good.
There we go. Representative Tinderholt, and then...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to follow up on Representative Kane's question, if we did mandate that local, outside of the state, if local entities had to use you, would that increase the full-time employees, and would it increase the workload on y'all significantly?
Maybe not significantly. I think there would be somewhat of an increase, but to remember, particularly with these cooperative contract vehicles. So we're procuring them, they're multi-award contracts, and we manage those contracts, but the actual agreement is between that local government entity and the vendor on that. So there would still be an amount of work, I would say it would be a relatively small increase in our folks.
That's nice. That's good to know. So are there systems that the state's using that are 30, 40, 50 years old?
Yes.
Is it more difficult to secure them? Meaning you said that there's 1 billion intrusions per
Attempts.
per how often?
Day.
Is it more difficult to protect those old legacy systems than it would be to protect new up-to-date
Vastly
systems?
more difficult, yes.
Have you guys ever estimated, and maybe you haven't, have you ever estimated what it would cost to change statewide systems over the course of, say, 3 to 5 years? Is there any estimates, even just guesstimates?
We
what
have
it
some
might-
guesstimates that we could get you. One of the things that's a tool that the legislature has in front of them is the Prioritization of Cybersecurity and Legacy Systems Report. And that is a report that is published biennially. It's a confidential report due to the nature of it. And agencies submit to us their projects that are either a cybersecurity risk or a legacy system. We do an analysis on those systems, and we put them into quadrant, and we make recommendations to you all for funding decisions. Typically, over the past several sessions, I believe the top 2 quadrants have been funded to the tune of about $1 billion. So, but I will point out that is not a required report. So it doesn't necessarily encompass the total world of cybersecurity and legacy systems because agencies aren't required to submit to that report. But that could help us give us a ballpark on what that might look like if there was a 3 to 5 year roadmap. And we have other planning tools that might help you with that.
In a perfect world, would you like to see that happen?
Yes, sir.
And so in dealing with all of these other agencies, do you think they'd like to see it happen?
I think that agencies would love to see their systems modernized and updated. I don't think that any reticence and any the existence of technological debt overwhelmingly is just due to priorities and funding, and not due to a lack of a desire to do so.
So I get different licenses for my business through the state, and I go through it myself, and I have to do about 10 clicks to get where I need to go, where I should actually nowadays
Right.
do 1 or 2. Do you see from what you do an efficiency for just the average employee across the state if we were to invest in systems of 2025?
Yes.
So it could potentially, there would be an investment, but we would probably see pretty huge changes in the amount of money spent over the course of, say, 10, 12 years because we upgrade these systems.
Absolutely. I think the efficiencies both for the public, for the government, improving morale and retention because of an employee experience when you're actually working on modern systems and you can do your job more effectively, I think it could have a significant impact.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Representative Rodriguez Ramos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Going to the sunset issues, the issue 1 that's in your report says customer input mechanisms and board structure could be improved to better represent its customers and help ensure their needs are met. What does that mean? Like why was this recommendation put forth?
So DIR has a variety of different customer input mechanisms, and some of those are in statute. And so through the sunset review, they looked at one particular mechanism or a couple, one of them being the Customer Advisory Committee, I believe that it's called, that's created by statute. And that, the recommendation was to promote that more and to solicit more feedback through that specific group. And so we have already done changes to the Customer Advisory Committee. Over time, I will say that committee, while we were still doing work with that, we had evolved along with technology to a lot of different, say, more focus groups and other customer input mechanisms. For example, when I mentioned the 99% customer satisfaction rate, we poll our customers every month on how we're doing and soliciting that feedback. And then we have a lot of other channels where we are soliciting feedback from our customer agencies at all levels on, for example, what products would you like to see on our contracts? But in the course of that, I think that customer advisory committee that was created by statute, we didn't have as much focus on that, and so we've been making changes, and we're glad to make those happen.
So by customer, do you mean customer as in the agencies or customers in the people?
Thank you.
Or is it
Sorry,
both?
customers as agency, because so one of our that is a great point of clarification. Thank you. So because of our mission at DIR, we serve those who serve. So we are serving the entities who do that. We are very driven on that customer mission. But when I say customers, I mean government customers and not actually Texans directly.
Okay. And the issue number 3 that says adjustments to 2 of DIR's main contracting programs could better ensure that states get the best deal of IT, I'm sorry. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So one of the recommendations was, and which Director Beverly referenced earlier, was around staff augmentation resources. And so going back to when I referenced before, we have our Shared Technology Services Program, which is a managed service. It is a much more high-touch managed service, white glove type service for agencies, say particularly small to medium-sized agencies that don't have IT staff. For example, as the reference was before, some of these agencies, some other agencies have IT shops that are 3 to 4 times my entire agency. And so if you are a smaller agency and you want to implement a new system, you might want to leverage those services because you need more of that technical resources that you don't have on staff. So those resources cost more money through the program because it's a more high-touch resource. If you were to go out through co-op, the cooperative contracts, and get an IT staff aug resource, you would be able to do that for less, but it's a different level of resource. And so what this is basically it would be a budgetary mechanism to allow agencies to use funds dedicated for shared services, but to use those outside of shared services in co-op. It gets real kind of budget weedy. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, okay. And the last one, DIR needs more tools to protect the state's cybersecurity. What do they mean by that, and other than resources, financial and
I think it's
FTE?
resources, obviously financial. We will, I think anyone in the business of security will always accept all the resources and funding and tools to combat the evolving threats. The other thing around there was to mandate that state agencies, and I believe institutions of higher education, but that state agencies get a penetration test and security assessment that's funded by the legislature through DIR every 2 years. So currently those are funded, but they're not required. So this would do it on a 2-year basis. And so that's one of the tools that would then help state agencies improve the security posture.
Going back to the state agencies, and you said that in terms of their cybersecurity, and they are asking, or they get some type of assessment from you, or some. What is your relation? How do you work with the local governments, and how do we ensure that they're getting the protections they need? And I imagine the local or the smaller governments, rural areas, or what have you, may not have the resources to really put forth this, but still need to protect their constituents or their communities. So what do you do in that situation?
So you're correct that so our focus, Representative, through our programs and where we have more hands-on resource or assistance is with state agencies. However, through our shared services, one of the towers in those services, one of the contracts that we have is a managed security services contract. And that is any of our eligible government customers can sign up for those services. It is a $0 contract until you actually need the services. It provides assessments, tools, incident response, consulting, all of the things that you would need for security. So that's one thing that's available. But the other thing that I mentioned briefly, but happy to go in a little bit more in my earlier comments, is our Regional Security Operations Center program. Okay. And so this is a partnership that has been funded by the legislature and created a few years ago to create regional security operations centers in partnership with universities throughout the state to provide direct cybersecurity resources to local governments.
Oh, wow.
And so it is network monitoring, it is tools like endpoint detection and response, it is education, it is incident response, and all of that goes through these RSOCs, as we call them, and at no cost to those local government entities. The first one was at Angelo State. They're currently serving that West Texas region, and then we have the ones that are about to launch at UT Austin and the other one at UT Rio Grande Valley.
I didn't know about this. So Is it being highly utilized by the?
It is absolutely taking off like wildfire. There is a
Wow.
need, and the local governments are thrilled to be able to do it. The other added benefit of this program is that, and one of the requirements, the universities have to put the students to work. So the students are there, they are working the incidents, they are doing the monitoring, and then that's training up our future cyber pipeline. So one of our exceptional items this session is to fund an additional 4 RSOCs at 4 other universities to be selected by the legislature.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Representative Olcott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Crawford. Although I don't have firsthand knowledge of this, I've been hearing stories that school districts are losing lots of money through phishing scams and cybersecurity attacks. I wanted to ask you, is that true? And maybe even, and if it is, maybe more importantly, how much money are we talking about? Have you all actually assessed the total amount that school districts have lost through that, maybe in a certain calendar year?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Yes, school districts are vulnerable, and they are hit all the time. Up until last session, let me correct that. So last session, a bill was passed that requires all local governments to report a cybersecurity incident to DIR. Prior to that,
I'm sorry, even if they're don't have contracts with you?
correct.
Okay.
Any local government in Texas, and they have to do so within 48 hours so that we can get a better understanding of what the threat is, share information on that threat with others through our channels, and get a big picture of the threat landscape. There is not a requirement, though, as part of that they report necessarily financial loss, data loss. Yes, there's other mechanisms, or if a ransom was paid. School districts were required before that to report some of that information around attacks to TEA. All of that is a long way of saying we know that they are hit, but it is very difficult to calculate and give you a precise number on costs, on ransomware payments, or what that looks like, just because of the statutory structure right now.
So although they're not required to report to you, are they required to report not only that it occurred, but the amount to TEA?
I don't believe there's a requirement to report the amount to TEA, but they are required to report the incident. And I will say school districts are one of the entities that are eligible for those services at the RSOC, like I mentioned, and we are seeing they are definitely taking advantage of that program.
Some are.
Pardon me?
Some are.
Some are, yes.
And so it sounds like, and I've also been told that you all have really good cybersecurity that you provide. And if they were to go through you, this is much less likely to occur. Would you agree with that?
So for the
Not that you're perfect, but is that a true statement? That
Right,
for the
there's-
most part, you all provide much better cybersecurity than many of the vendors that the school districts use.
So I would say this, that it's difficult to say that necessarily, but what I would say is that we have reports to show and the data to show that those state agencies that are within our program, that reside within the DIR infrastructure and the security environment that we have, ranks higher than state agencies that are not. And part of it is, it's a robust program, and it is not something that a small school district would necessarily be able to provide. So yes, I think that it would be fair to say if they were in that program, they would be in a better security posture. It may not be the best fit for them, and so there might be other things and vendors out there that could help.
Do you think that, and this question's kind of come up before, do you think most school districts know that your services exist?
I don't know that they know that around the cybersecurity. I think school districts are somewhat aware of our contracting programs, but no, not likely for security.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Curry.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for everything you've told us. And if I could clone you and Director Beverly, I would do it like right now. So with what y'all have spoken about and with the way you handle things, it's quite impressive. I also appreciate my colleagues on the panel for the questions, because y'all have stolen most of my good questions, which I'm very happy about. I do want to get, if you wouldn't mind, would you repeat what SDS stands for?
Sure. Shared Technology Services.
STS.
Yes.
Okay. And
Sorry, government acronyms.
And so it is not currently, it's the purchasing part is required, and I'm trying to clarify a couple things. The purchasing part is required of state agencies, correct?
Correct. Through cooperative contracts, yes.
Okay, but that's not required through every piece of our state government?
For the shared technology services, there are agencies that are mandated by statute to leverage that program or get an exemption from us to go elsewhere. And that number is about 27 state agencies. But our voluntary customers, as we would say, has vastly grown since the program first started back in 2005. And we can get you exact numbers on who's leveraging the program and what portions of it. Because some of it is the actual infrastructure. So think the data centers and the cloud programs. But there are other services that are offered by shared services, like the managed security thing that I just mentioned, managed security services, that maybe some agencies that aren't required by law are just taking part of a piece of it.
Okay, thank you for that. So when earlier you used the term eligible government customers, I'm assuming that that's any taxpayer-funded entity in the state of Texas that would be eligible?
I will get back to you to confirm, because we will double check. But last session, a bill was passed and was enacted that cleaned up our statutes, because it used to be a little bit like a law school exam to try to figure out who was eligible under what portion, to essentially make, if you are, to your definition, essentially a tax-paying government entity, that you should be an eligible customer. But I will get you more specific details on that, and eligible for any of our services. And that would include even other states. So there is a valve in there, though, that would allow us, me as executive director, to make sure that it would be in the best interest of the state to allow those government customers to come in. And the reason for that valve is we want to make sure that we are always Texas first and focused on our primary mission before we decide to, help another state who would like to take advantage of the good deals and the good services we have.
So I think it might be helpful to look at the number of eligible entities, see if there's some restrictions on any taxpaying entity that is not eligible for some reason,
right.
And then person by person, representative by representative, for us to know who is eligible and who is not participating or who is participating, because we can help them. We should be able to help them join into the program with a white paper and some bullet points and so on and so forth. But I would think that would be a positive step to, and from a marketing standpoint too, I'm assuming that you want to market your services and want to market it to save the taxpayers, all the taxpayers in Texas, money, even at the local level. It sounds like you do.
We currently have, we do education and outreach, but we do not have authority to market our services other than texas.gov.
Okay, that's interesting to know. Then I'm going to transition this just a little bit about, and I believe Representative Tenderholt was going towards a single point of data. And I'm going to tie it with an artificial intelligence question as well, because in all of my history, I think you might have been here earlier when I was talking, and I like having all my data in one place, and I like being able to get to it, but I do want to protect it 100%. And do you believe the capability exists? Do you have the capability to be able to take the data from all the agencies in various forms, get it into a form that's usable by those of us that need to get to it, and protect it extremely well to where nobody's going to get to touch it other than qualified state employees that know what they're doing with it, and nobody could ever get to it? Multiple point question.
Multiple point. So, I was certainly encouraged, and both with the comments around data, and I echo what Director Beverly said around data and data quality, and that is definitely an issue for the state and the quality of that. Regarding how, could that be done? Yes. I mean, we do difficult things, and we can figure out how to consolidate all that. The wisdom around that and what that would look like, how we would structure it from your point, from the security standpoint as well. I mean, we will, any security person, will all tell you there's no such thing as 100% secure. But to your point, are there ways that we could do this where, and also to the multi-tenant question, I think that Representative Tenderholt was talking about, where, there would be access to certain pockets of the data by the agencies that need to have it. Other agencies like the Sunset Advisory Commission that would have access to more of that, or anyone else who was making data-driven decisions. Yes, I think there is a way to structure that and do that. In order to get there, though, that is a long-term goal. I think the short term needs to be that there needs to be conversations around the data, and that all data held by the state is Texas's data. It's not held onto by individual agencies and silos. Of course, there's regulated data. Of course, there's restrictions. All of those things can be managed and handled, and we can figure that out. But to promote a data culture, a culture of sharing, of data governance, of good, clean data, which is one of the goals that we have through our data literacy program, so that you all can make those data-driven decisions, so that the agency heads can make data-driven decisions, and the governor. I think that is the end goal, and that was something that the state could really invest in.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Representative Tinderholt.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. So I want to show the importance of upgrading our systems. I'm not great at math. I'm a retired Army guy, but what I'm hearing is about 350 billion to 400 billion intrusion attempts per year. Is that semi-accurate? At
I'm
$1 billion
not
a day?
great at math either, but yes, sure.
So with those intrusions and the systems that your organization protects, is there intelligence behind those systems? Meaning maybe things DPS or another agency has collected. Is there intelligence back on the back end of that?
Yes.
Is there ERCOT, like power? If
Yes.
someone intruded, could they potentially shut power down?
ERCOT is on they're not on our state network, but yeah.
Is there water infrastructure?
There are state agency systems, water infrastructure, likely not. But that is a whole nother conversation that is extremely valid around.
Correct. Is there personal data like HIPAA type stuff, medical?
Yes.
So the importance of this stuff, of potentially an investment by the state legislature to totally change the way that we store data, the way that we share data, and the systems that we use is really that valuable. And on top of being more secure and easier to secure, I'm hearing that we could potentially make the investment and long-term actually save significantly more than the investment potentially would be. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, that's a fair assessment.
So it sure seems like a simple solution, right? Except for the money.
That's y'all's business. Yes.
How long would implementation, if we just dropped that amount of money, how long would an implementation realistically take?
Are you talking about the
Statewide.
modernization of all the systems?
Correct.
I think you're looking at least a 10-year plan.
And so acting
At
quickly
least.
would be prudent if we wanted to do it quickly.
If you want, yes.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Vice Chair Bajani.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Crawford, for your testimony here. I wanted to find out if there's any duplication basically in your agency. Are there any notable responsibilities that overlap with other agencies? And if so, does that sort of hinder your progress? Like if there is an IT department that has more people in another agency than your own branch, is that like duplicate?
It's a wonderful question, and that's one of the things that that part of our sunset review that they look for is those duplications. And it's are there some of the efforts that we do duplicated in other agencies? And the Sunset had their report around that and made their recommendations, primarily finding no, that there aren't. And part of that, again, it goes back to what we call this Texas model, where we have, in Texas, it's not a centralized IT state. We have, it is a federated model, so where at DIR, we are providing, strategy solutions, the security tools for agencies. We are helping them get to where they need to go. That Sherpa, I guess if I added another S, sort of on their technology journey. But the agencies are executing on that plan and following that plan. And I think that, the benefits to that, if you look at the size of the state agency enterprise, and if you, how large it is, that turns out to be a very large IT organization. Not that couldn't happen if it was perhaps centralized, but I will just give an example that in another state that is a centralized IT state, At one point in time, in talking to my peer in that state, they had 3 times as many vacancies in their IT agency as I did total employees. And so I think part of the model that we have here, again, is that addresses those workforce challenges that we have by leveraging, the best in breed vendors to be able to make sure that the onus is on them to scale up to meet those needs. And that it also allows agencies to do what they do best, to get really specialized into the systems that they're developing for their constituents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, are there any other questions? If not, thank you for your testimony.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.